marriage restoration. Today on The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of Saint Joseph. I'm Jim Havens, and we have two guests today, two retreat planners for the first ever Catholics for Marriage Restoration retreat in Atlanta, coming up this week, November 13th through 15th. We're going to get to those guests in just a moment, but first, you ought to know that Catholics for Marriage Restoration, also known as CFMR, Catholics for Marriage Restoration, that they assist unjustly abandoned or reluctantly separated men and women who remain faithful to their marriage vows as they hope for reconciliation. So again, first ever retreat coming up November 13th through 15th this week, Catholic for marriagerestoration.com. That's the website, Catholic for marriagerestoration.com. You can get a bunch of great resources there along with information on the retreat, but we're also going to be talking about it all throughout the program today. But we've got David Schoenberger and Catherine Anderson here with us. So what a treat to have two guests on here for the upcoming retreat. Again, two retreat planners for that retreat. So David and Catherine, welcome to The Simple Truth. Thank you for being with us today. And we're going to start with David. You're in the hot seat first. We're going to ask you both to share a little bit of your personal testimony and what brings you to this work so we can get acquainted with you a little bit. But David, why don't you begin for us?
Okay. Yeah. Lifelong Catholic, cradle Catholic. Met my wife in college. We dated all throughout college. Got married right afterwards. Had two children, boy and a girl. We were together for till 2020. My wife separated from me. Then a divorce was finalized in 2022. There's been an annulment. And I didn't really know what standing for the marriage was, standing for wedding vows, but I happened upon Dr. Christine Bacon's website and found out information, and also Layla Miller, and she got me in touch with Christine, and I joined Christine's group, and that led me to the CFMR group here, the Babe McFarland's group. I believe I have a valid marriage, so I'm standing for the marriage until death.
Yeah, wonderful. So, yeah, thank you, David. Thank you for being with us today to share a bit of your story and also about this upcoming retreat and this beautiful reality of standing for one's marriage when they believe that, look, valid marriage and things have taken place that outside of what I would choose, outside of my will, but still going to respond to reality as I see it. If I'm in a valid marriage, I'm going to stand for it. So this is beautiful. This is very important and something that is rather new as far as hearing more and more about this. And now a retreat, I think it's very exciting to hear how God is moving in this and really bringing healing to people and bringing strength to folks as they really strive to be faithful to God's call on their life. And really, really wonderful. So thank you, David, for being with us. And also, again, Catherine is our other guest today, Catherine Anderson. Catherine, share a little bit of your story.
I'm also a cradle Catholic, lifelong Catholic, married a lifelong Catholic. We met in college. We went to a technical engineering school. We went through proper marriage prep. We were also very active in our diocese. We've moved around quite a bit. So when we lived in Richmond, Virginia, we were a marriage prep couple there, worked with young couples that were considering the vocation of matrimony. And then here in Atlanta, the same. We were founding members of the parish that I'm a member of still. We had infertility issues, and then God blessed us with 4 sons. So there had been indications in the marriage of things not going according to divine law. Probably as long ago as a decade and a half, almost 2 decades ago. And then in 2013, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my husband had accepted a position in another state. And shortly after I finished treatment, I found out that he was involved in another relationship. And in 2018, he filed for the first time for divorce and then changed his mind. And then 2019, he filed, and COVID hit, and everything was slowed down through the court system. And it was last year that our divorce became final, no annulment. Interestingly enough, I found out about standards or an official group, a support group network through the Archdiocese here. Met a man named Bob Becca, who heads up Witness to Marriage for the Archdiocese, and through that became familiar with Bay McFarland and Sacred Standards with Christine Bacon. And from that group, we started, we have monthly meetings, but we also do a nightly rosary, pray for our marriages and our spouses, restoration of all marriages. And so that's how I became familiar with the people in CFMR. And then we're struggling to find a place to have a retreat, and the Archdiocese of Atlanta was gracious enough to encourage us and also co-sponsor us.
Well, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for sharing all of that. And yeah, again, just there's such a beauty here as we hear David and Catherine speak of this, as you hear the community that is forming by God's grace around all of this. So wonderful, so fruitful, so good to hear. Thank you to the Archdiocese of Atlanta. So great to hear their participation in this. Again, Catholics for Marriage Restoration, CFMR, the website catholicformarriagerestoration.com. And the reason that I've heard of standards. We've had Layla Miller on the show before several times. Would love to have her back again. She's phenomenal on this as well as other things, as well as I know Father Altier is also going to be participating part of the retreat. He's a friend of the program. We love having Father Altier on. But it was really an anonymous viewer or listener to this program who sent me a message about this. Or else this specific group, CFMR, CatholicForMarriageRestoration.com, this would not have been on my radar or this retreat coming up this week, except for this anonymous listener or viewer. So if you're out there, thank you so much. And for anybody, when you give little messages, sometimes they are very important. So thank you for sharing this. And David and Catherine, really excited to have you on today. So we're going to get into the retreat, who it's for, and kind of unpack a lot of that, so that folks who are listening, maybe they can sort of discern, hey, is this for me? And maybe there might even be somebody listening who, even though it's Monday and this retreat, this particular retreat starts on Wednesday morning in Atlanta, who knows? They might be called to it and might make arrangements and get over there. So if God's calling you, if that's you, keep listening. You'll learn more here. But just, I guess, before we hit the break here, David, anything that you wish to say just in terms of any initial introduction to somebody who's listening and hearing this topic for the first time, their story may connect in some way. Anything that you would speak to them or that you recall kind of that hit you the first time that you sort of heard about this, and that you would want to say to anybody else?
I heard about the retreat, you mean? Or
no, I mean just even the category of folks that are in the situation of standing for their marriage, that Yeah, maybe it's the first time they've ever even really thought that much about it in terms of putting it in those terms.
Yeah, I would just encourage anyone who's in a marriage to recognize that the church does say that marriages are valid until proven otherwise. So please pray and discern about standing. And I think for most people are in valid marriages. And I think for most people, that's the answer, to stay in their marriage and to stand for their marriage, even when their spouse leaves. So I would just encourage people to do that.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, Catherine, anything you'd like to add?
So I think that most people, when they stand at the altar and they exchange their vows and they repeat the words in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, till death do us part, understand that, should their spouse undergo some sort of physical trauma or illness, that, they're expected to stand by their side and assist them through it and stay faithful to the marriage. I think that somehow, though, it's become lost on the church in general, that if somebody is going through what we call a spiritual coma, that they've fallen away from the faith in some way, that they're still suffering and there is still hope for them. They need healing, right? So all our healing that we go through in life is not necessarily physical, probably very little of physical healing. So, just as you would expect to stand by your spouse or have your spouse stand next, by you, if you are going through a physical trauma, then, we should expect that of each other too. That's part of our vocation. That's part of our vow. So even if somebody abandons their spouse, we still, we've been committed to stay with them and help to bring them back.
We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
Tired of your phone bill supporting who knows what? Switch to iCatholic Mobile, the only 5G provider that won't leave you guessing where your money's going. With iCatholic Mobile, every call, text, and even that group chat you can't escape helps support the Station of the Cross. So why not switch to a network that's good for your soul and your wallet? Visit iCatholicMobile.com today and make your mobile service work for a higher purpose.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. If you already have the app, please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it.
Please join us in a prayer to our guardian angel. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. O holy guardian angel, take care of our soul and body. Enlighten our mind that we may know the Lord better and love him with all our heart. Help us in our prayers so that we may not give in to distractions. Assist us with your advice so that we may see the good and carry it out with generosity. Defend us from the insidious snares of the enemy and sustain us in temptations that we may always be victorious. Remedy our coldness in our worship of the Lord. Cease not to protect us until you have brought us into paradise, where we will praise our good God together for all eternity. Amen.
Jim Havens here with our guests today, David Schoenberger and Catherine Anderson, two retreat planners for the first ever Catholics for Marriage Restoration retreat in Atlanta. Coming up this week, November 13th through 15th. You can go to CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. That is Catholics with an S for MarriageRestoration.com. I was saying it without the S in the first segment, and I thought that was a little bit weird because the name of the group is Catholics, plural, for Marriage Restoration. But then I was saying it without the S in the URL, and that's because I don't know why in the copy-paste transition there, I lost the S. So sorry about that. It is with the S. So now hopefully nobody will forget that. Catholics with an S for MarriageRestoration.com is where you need to go to find out more about this group, about this retreat. Really terrific stuff. So David, let's switch back to you for a moment on the retreat. What would you like to share in terms of an introduction on this retreat? Who is it for? Why is it unique? Anything else you'd like to share by way of introduction on it?
I think it's for anyone who wants to discern what God's will is for their marriage and for their life. Most of the people, I think, will be standers, but we're trying not to box people in. We're trying to get people to come to this retreat and pray and learn from the speakers about what marriage is, and just so they can discern better. But like I said, I think most people have decided or prayed about and know that they have a valid marriage understanding for their marriage. So most of the people will be like that. And like I said, there'll be lots of speakers to educate, and we have daily mass and adoration and a Divine Mercy Chaplet. So lots of speakers, but also lots of time for prayer.
Terrific. Yeah, that sounds great. Catherine, anything to add to that?
No, I encourage anybody who is struggling with carrying the cross of separation and divorce to look up the retreat and see if they can come. I know that when I first was given this cross, I found it very difficult, found it very isolating. So one of the things that we are hoping for, whether people can come to the retreat or just connect with us through our website, is to try and help people plug into a support network. It is very isolating, having grown up Catholic with the understanding that divorce just doesn't happen, especially within the Catholic Church. When it does occur, and we're finding that almost every family is touched by divorce now, every Catholic family, whether it's the individual themselves or their children or a sibling. It just seems that divorce is just prevalent. So it's good to have a network. And that was something that was very hard to plug into, especially when I started this journey, because it was COVID, right? We were all in lockdown. So it was very fortunate that we were able to connect virtually. And now we're really excited to be able to bring opportunities in person to help people to discern this this part of their vocational journey and to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true what you say, how many people are affected by divorce in our time. And for me, I am a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was in high school. And yeah, there's a lot that just, there's not a lot of space, sadly, in our world to bring these things to the surface and to talk about what's really going on here and the right way to really look at things and deal with things. Certainly, the Catholic Church ought to be at the forefront, and leadership in the Catholic Church at the forefront of really helping people to see things in the right way and deal with them in the right way. And this is an area where there is, again, a vast amount of need. And so I guess, Catherine, I'll stick with you for a moment. So on this topic of standing for one's marriage when you believe it to be a valid marriage, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of people around you telling you, just go ahead and just get the annulment going, and just don't worry about thinking about whether it's valid or not too much. Just get the process going. And, people mean well in saying all of these things, but that might not be the right encouragement. That might not be the right course of action, depending on the situation. It doesn't seem like there are many voices. And this is why this is so needed. There are many voices even giving people sort of the framework to say there's an option that to really consider, that perhaps your marriage is valid and you are to stay faithful even while maybe, the situation is that your spouse has left and is gone, and you've been abandoned or left by your spouse, but you can still remain faithful to the valid marriage perhaps that is there. It just doesn't, you don't hear people talking like that, but I don't know, anything that you would want to add to that?
Yeah. So I think as a society, right, we encourage people to avoid suffering at all cost. And I think that's permeated into the church. It's permeated into our culture. And, we can have very devout, well-meaning Catholic family members, friends, people in our church community who, they see the suffering of divorce and they want to do whatever they can to help you not have to deal with it. But, Christ, told us we are going to suffer, right? And marriage is supposed to be a reflection of God's love for us. And so Christ was abandoned. Christ was betrayed. Christ stayed on the cross and suffered through. And I really believe with all my heart that that's what God is calling us to do. It's not easy. It certainly is lonely. It certainly is painful. But love is a choice, right? It's a choice we made way back before we approached the altar, was to love our spouse no matter what. And it's not a feeling, it's actually a commitment. So I stand because my husband asked me to, right, when he proposed to me. And I agreed then that I would. I stood at the altar. I promised him and God that that's what I would do in front of all our family and friends. And so now when, it becomes difficult, it would be so easy to turn and walk away. And so many people will tell you, you deserve to be happy, find someone else, it's a sad thing, because what we really need to do is to continue to remain faithful, be a witness to marriage, to everyone in our community, especially to our family. My sons, I find it very important to be a witness to marriage to them, to show them that we can choose to forgive others who hurt us. We can still stand. We have the ability to choose to do what God is calling us to do, no matter what else somebody else is doing at the same time. And I want to encourage them to seriously consider marriage as a vocation, so that as they are determining whether or not they are to get married and who their future spouse might be, that they have the courage to know that there will be rough times, right? We don't know what they are, but every marriage endures rough times. And they should have the courage to stand firm no matter what. And I think it's really important that we need to do that. I think it's really important that as a church, we encourage our members to do that. That is what marriage is.
Yes, yeah, very well said. Thank you for that, Catherine. Yeah, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. They have a retreat coming up this week. Again, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. David, that stuck out to me in your story as you were sharing your story a little bit and saying how, if I got this correct, you said that an annulment was granted, and yet, so I guess the annulment was granted, and then, so you must have, I guess, participated in that process, but then came to the realization sometime after that, you know what, though, actually, you think that the marriage was valid and you're going to stand by the vows. Tell us a little bit more about that, because, yeah, there may be people in that situation where maybe they're just hearing about this for the first time, not something has never sat right for them with the whole annulment process, but maybe they've gone through it. And maybe in the end, now, as they're hearing this today and they're considering it, I guess just share a little bit more about your story in that regard.
Yeah, I always thought the marriage was valid, even during the whole course of the annulment, and I participated in the process as best I could and fought it vigorously. It wasn't a question of me coming to the realization that it was a valid marriage during the process. I knew it was before, during, and after. So, yeah, and that's where it stands now. And I can't get into the details of it because I'm not allowed to disclose a lot of it, but I can tell you that I firmly believe there was nothing in there that indicated it was an invalid marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the clarification there. Go ahead. You have more to say on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say what Catherine was saying a minute ago. You know, the people telling spouses who have been abandoned to move on. It's it's false compassion. And I think a lot of people talk about that. It's not looking out for the best interest of the person. It's leading them down the wrong way. So it's false compassion. And yeah. It would be nice if there was a little more help in the church for people like us who are standing for their vows, and a little, because there's plenty of help for people, divorce care groups and things like that. But not a whole lot of help for people like us. So that's kind of unfortunate, and hopefully that'll change in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, David. Well, you're part of changing that. You're part of making that change. And this retreat coming up this week, again, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com, an opportunity for people to dive in prayerfully and learn more and find this community of good folks, faithful Catholic people that are there to welcome you with open arms. So this is beautiful. Catherine, anything that you'd like to share in terms of what good fruits do you hope to see, do you hope will come from the retreat?
I'm hoping that not only the retreat participants, but those we have a community, or we're going to have a dinner open up to the community on Thursday evenings, inviting people to come in who are looking for more information to support members of their family or their church parish community that are going through divorce and separation, just to help them understand better what marriage is and why it's so important that people, even in good, stable marriages, also fight to support marriages that are in trouble. Because actually, if we don't see all marriage as sacred, then we're undermining all marriage. So we're hoping that just by opening up the conversation, inviting people in, that they'll see that, that they'll come and listen and look at the possibility of standing.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, we've got to authentically love one another, and that's according to what is objectively true. And so, look, this is important, and you can see, especially in this area, how this false compassion that David was talking about and Catherine was talking about, people very well intended, but there's such a sense where somebody wants to make things better and say, oh yeah, well, you can make it better this way, even though it is not in accord with what is true. So we got to stand for what is true, and that's real love. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
What kind of resistance are you getting in the social media forum? Have you been accused of misinformation, hate speech, thought crimes of any kind?
Yes, all of the above. We have been listed on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of hate groups, which, these days, frankly, is a badge of honor. Any group that's doing work in this area that hasn't received that designation might want to ask if they're being affected.
Atheists claim theists are essentially no different than atheists because we reject gods too, such as Greek and Roman gods. But this is plain absurdity. What's our reason? First, it's an abuse of language. A theist believes in at least one God. An atheist doesn't believe in any God. They're mutually exclusive terms. To say a theist is an atheist to most gods is like saying a married man is a bachelor to most women. Second, it's bad reasoning. To say I'm an atheist because I reject some gods is like saying I'm an anarchist, one who rejects all forms of government because I reject communism and fascism, some forms of government. But that's silly. So the claim that atheists and theists are no different doesn't hold water. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Hi,
Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take, heard on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. A bold synthesis of information and inspiration, keeping you up to date on the news and issues that you may have missed from a courageous Catholic perspective. That's A Catholic Take, weekday morning, 7 a.m. right here on the Station of the Cross and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app. Download it today. God love you.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. I'm Jim Havens, Catholics for Marriage Restoration, CFMR, catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. So they assist unjustly abandoned or reluctantly separated men and women who remain faithful to their marriage vows as they hope for reconciliation. They've got their first ever retreat coming up in Atlanta, November 13th through 15th this week. Again, more information at catholicsformarriagerestoration.com, but we've got two of the retreat planners here with us today, David Schoenberger and Catherine Anderson. We're going to learn more about the retreat straight from them in just a minute, but I do want to recommend a couple of books from Lila Miller. If you've not heard of these before or haven't checked them out, if you're interested in this topic, Primal Loss, The Now Adult Children of Divorce Speak, a very helpful book in terms of really getting at the reality of things from the perspective of the children and the brokenness that does take place after divorce, and how that all is very real and yet oftentimes not very much spoken of. So that's helpful. It's maybe a tough one to read depending on your situation, or really, I mean, to hear the brokenness that does that is often there in terms of children of divorce that have experienced that in their family. A tough thing for anybody to read about that reality, but we've got to face what is real so that we can truly, authentically love one another. And if you know children in your midst, maybe they're adults now, but they experienced divorce. I can just say, like, if you really want to love them well, it'd be good to kind of know a little bit about who they are and what their experience has been. So, very helpful book, Primal Loss by Lila Miller. Also, from Lila Miller, a more positive, maybe uplifting one to read about, and this is called Impossible Marriages Redeem, impossible in quotes, and that goes along with the mission statement of Catholics for Marriage Restoration. They say, assisting unjustly abandoned or reluctantly separated men and women who remain faithful to their marriage vows as they hope for reconciliation, even if somebody might say it's impossible in certain situations. God can do amazing things, and nothing is impossible for God. And there are stories of seemingly impossible redemption that takes place and reconciliation that takes place in some of these marriages that you would never think would be possible. You can read all about those stories in Lila's book there, Impossible Marriages Redeemed by Lila Miller. So a couple great resources there, but there's a whole lot of great speakers and people involved in this retreat with a lot of great resources surrounding the topic. Catherine, can you share with us a little bit more in terms of planning the retreat and what people will actually receive in being a part of this retreat? So many great people involved.
Right. We have some tremendous support. We have Father Nathaniel Block, who is out of the Diocese of Snowmass. Is it Snowmass, I believe, David? Snowmass, Arizona, and Gallup, New Mexico. He is also head of their tribunal there, so he'll be the pastor for our retreat. And we're going to, I think you had mentioned Father Robert Altier. Mm-hmm. He is the author of is it God's Plan for Your Marriage. Yeah. He's one of our speakers. He couldn't be with us in person, but we've pre-recorded his talk as well as one from Layla Miller. Dr. Christine Bacon will be with us. Beverly Willette, John Clark, Betrayed Without a Kiss are all speakers from the Diocese of Atlanta. We have Dr. Felix Menendez out of the Tribunal Office, Father Elias Durham, another local priest. We have several priests that are going to be here that will help with confessions and spiritual direction. We have different faith-based counselors that will be here to help people kind of navigate this treacherous landscape. So plenty of great speakers, lots of time to reflect. I think David mentioned we're going to be having daily mass, time for confessions, chaplet of divine mercy, some time for just spiritual reflection, and to ask lots of questions and just to take some time to hear God, to know what He is calling us to do, and to find the courage and the support to move in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yes. David, what else would you like to share with us about the retreat?
Yeah, all that stuff, and plenty of time for getting to know people and fellowship, and all meals included, only $35, great deal. But yeah, I think, and on Friday we're going to have a panel with most of the speakers, probably not all of them, but most of them, for anybody to ask questions of them all in one group. Let's see, we're having the community dinner on Thursday evening, which has already been mentioned. So yeah, just a lot of great opportunities. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I think a couple of the people, 2 or 3 of the people, are also going to be offering spiritual direction as well. So that's another opportunity, one-on-one spiritual direction.
Wow, terrific. Again, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. The retreat coming up this week in Atlanta beginning Wednesday morning. I realize this is broadcasting live on Monday afternoon, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. So time is short here, but if the Lord is calling you, I just want to encourage you to say yes. That's always going to be the answer, is to say yes if the Lord is giving you that good prompting, that call to be a part of something. And this opportunity is right before you here. CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. Again, all the information is there. But Catherine, I mean, it seems like you guys have done a phenomenal job planning all of this. You covered all the bases. I mean, it says it's the first one, but it sounds like, I mean, you've got the prayer covered, even down to particular, spiritual direction and counseling, and you got the sacraments going. So you're covering that. You've got great content, great speakers, all of that. And then you've got that community aspect, which is so essential around this. And honestly, it's something that from the moment we started the show just seems to be kind of exuding from you and David, this sense of it's not just you two. There's a community here to really welcome people into it. And just so wonderful to hear that exists. Anything else to say on it?
We are very fortunate. It's a community that's across the country, and actually we have some international members too that we found each other, like I said, during COVID, during lockdown, we found each other. I want to also give a shout out to the Archdiocese. They're going to be doing their first annual Mass for separated and divorced Catholics, and this is a huge blessing for us to be able to have this. And it was part of the reason that the Archdiocese was so welcoming for us to have the retreat here in Atlanta, is because we knew we're timed right before that. And the diocese is very, very committed to helping Catholics that find themselves divorced or separated. And, with this no-fault divorce culture, there's essentially nothing you can do. If one spouse in a marriage decides they want a divorce, there's nothing you can do to stop it. They take you to the civil court, and you have no choice. It's amazing to me that you're totally stripped of all your rights. And whether, it's valid or invalid, whether there's cause on one person's, irrefutable cause, the courts don't care. They just award a divorce, no fault, and tell you to go on about your way. So it's very important that we have this community, that we come together, and that we stand for truth. Because when it comes down to it, eventually we're all going to be at our very own judgment, and we're going to have to stand before the Lord. And I don't think He's going to take too kindly to any of us saying, but so-and-so told me what I should do, right? We have a responsibility to know our faith, to learn our faith, to develop our conscience, and to follow God's truth. So it's really important that people come together, look at this, something that the church has known since the beginning of time, that, marriage is instituted by God for life. And we just need to encourage each other to stand firm while society around us is trying to convince us otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good, Catherine. Thank you so much. CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. And yeah, I guess I just want to add too that, a lot of what we're talking about here, there is discernment involved in a lot of difficult situations surrounding brokenness within marriage and maybe a spouse leaving and abandoning another spouse. All of these things, there can be a lot in the particulars to really sort of examine, right, and find out, okay, what really is the objective truth in a given situation. But one thing we know for sure that we need to proclaim, because sadly it hasn't been proclaimed enough, and that is the objective truth that, look, if somebody has gone through, and if one spouse and the other spouse didn't want it or whatever, and there's a civil divorce, if a civil divorce takes place, understand that if there's no annulment, you are still assumed to be validly married until there would be an annulment that would be granted by the authorities that can make that decision. And so that being said, just to know that sometimes that information doesn't get out there. So if you got family, if you got friends that are going through a situation like that, maybe it's you, but to know that just because a civil divorce has taken place, you can't just abandon the vows. You can't do that. You can't just assume that the marriage is invalid at that point before any sort of annulment is granted. A decree of nullity would be granted. I guess in the time that we're in, it is tricky even in discernment of when a decree of nullity is granted. Sort of what was the situation surrounding that. It can kind of get murky sometimes because of the way things are handled in certain dioceses. Again, you got to get into the particulars of it. But again, what we can know for sure is be faithful to that marriage. Assume that it is valid unless there is until a degree of nullity would be granted. Don't be acting as if you're not married when you still are, and no authority in the church has said that it wasn't valid. So I just want to make that point and make that clear. David, anything else you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, that's a very good point, that we always need to assume that it's valid. And as you know, the church even permits divorce in some very narrow circumstances. But that's only to protect legal rights, and that does nothing to the bond. The bond instituted by God between the two of you remains. And but yeah, in certain rare cases, divorce is permitted. But yeah. And just one more thing about that Mass on Saturday for divorced and separated Catholics that the Archdiocese is doing. That's going to be offered by Auxiliary Bishop John Tran. So very blessed to have one of the auxiliary bishops offering that Mass. I think that's a big deal that the Archdiocese is doing that.
Yeah, very, very, very big deal. Yeah, thank you again to the Archdiocese of Atlanta and to the auxiliary bishop and to all those who, maybe we don't know their names, but all those within the Archdiocese of Atlanta who has supported this good effort, this good work, this good apostolate that is going to be a great source of healing and strengthening and just doing wonderful things for people. That what a blessing this is what the church is meant to do, to love and to serve those who are in need. And so this is a category of people that sadly has been ignored for far too long. And now people are starting to kind of wake up to this. I really think it is a grace for our time, and very grateful to the Archdiocese of Atlanta for their support here of this and of this retreat in particular. Thank you to Catholics for Marriage Restoration, CFMR, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. You get all the information on the retreat there as well. But we do have one more segment to go with David and Catherine. So hang on for that. We're going to get to that. We're going to see any other thoughts that they want to share in the final segment. We'll just open up the floor and give them an opportunity to share any other comments that they would like to share with you today. So looking forward to that in the next segment that's going to be coming up. And I do want to remind people too, this weekend, an opportunity for those who are around the Boston, Massachusetts area. We've got the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion Rally for Personhood. You can go to themensmarch.com for all the information. It's going to be Saturday. We've got a prayer event Friday night. But please pray and support that good work as well. Themensmarch.com. We'll be right back.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network presents Saints and Seasons. On November 11th, we celebrate the feast of St. Martin of Tours, Bishop and Confessor. Martin was born the son of a Roman officer around the year of our Lord 316 in what is now modern Hungary, and at a young age became a Catholic catechumen against his parents' wishes. Martin joined the Roman army himself when he came of age, and while serving in Gaul, now France, he came across a beggar. Taking pity on the poor man, Martin cut his red military cloak in two with his sword and gave the beggar half. The next night, our Lord appeared to Martin, surrounded by angels and wearing the half cloak, inspiring Martin to finally receive baptism. After a few more years, Martin left the Roman army and became a disciple of Saint Hilary, Bishop of Poitiers. He became an acclaimed preacher, and against his own protests, he was eventually made Bishop of Tours. One tradition relates that Martin went so far as to hide from those who wished to see him consecrated, but was betrayed by the honking of a nearby goose. After many years leading his flock, evangelizing, and working miracles, Martin died in the year of our Lord 397. One of the earliest and most popular confessors or non-martyr saints, Martin is a patron of beggars, equestrians, soldiers, tailors, and much more. The Feast of Martin Miss is traditionally celebrated by dining on and sharing goose. Also honored on this day are Saint Menas the Martyr, Saint Athenodorus, and many other martyrs, confessors, and holy virgins. For more about the saints and seasons of the Catholic Church, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons.
Catholic radio has just been a lifesaver for me. I still listen to it every day. I start my day with it. I listen to it all day long as much as I can. I am very grateful for it.
It's just an amazing thing to have, as I am new to Catholicism. Obviously, it's not only helping me, but it's helping so many other people on their walk.
Thank you. God bless you for iCatholic Radio. It has changed my life.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guests today, David Schoenberg and Catherine Anderson. They are retreat planners for the first ever Catholics for Marriage Restoration retreat in Atlanta, coming up this week, November 13th through 15th. CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. That's CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. All right, Catherine Anderson, you're first up. The floor is yours. Anything else you want to share with us today?
I just encourage everybody to go to our website, check out some of the resources. I want to thank, in particular, Bay McFarland and Mary's Advocates for all of the support that we've gotten during our stand from her, for Christine Bacon and her Sacred Standers. But there are resources out there, and I think I had mentioned this earlier. It's so isolating when you find yourself in this situation, and it's so easy to become discouraged, to give up, to think there is no hope. But there's always hope, right? You think of Saul to Paul. He was a terrible sinner. He persecuted Christians, right? Nobody would have ever guessed that he would have become the man of God, winning souls for Christ. And it's the same for our spouses. They haven't always been lost. They are lost now, but there's still hope. And so we continue to love them, pray for them. I think it's really important to understand that whenever Satan attacks a marriage and a divorce or separation occurs, Satan's goal is to take down both of the spouses and then hopefully the children and then generations to come. And so it's really important that we become very rooted in our faith, that we stand and declare truth and be a witness to marriage. so that, we need to stand firm, letting our spouses know that, God is not giving up on them. We're not giving up on them. There is a way home. We wait for them. We still love them. And we're here.
Yeah. So good. So good, Catherine. Thank you so much. David, floor is yours. Any further comments to share with us today?
Yeah, I would just say this has been a very hard thing, obviously the most difficult thing in my life, but it's really been a blessing. I think discovering an appreciation I never had for the beauty of what marriage is, how when spouses take those vows, they're giving themselves completely to each other, just like Christ did. And just to really get an appreciation of that and to really see that, and to look at the giant crucifix in my church and realize that that's what we're called to imitate. We're supposed to lay down our lives for our spouses. So without this, I probably would have never had that realization, that understanding. So I think that's been a tremendous blessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much, David. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to both of you and to everybody else who is following likewise in terms of what you guys are doing here, standing for your marriage vows, standing for the sacrament of marriage, standing for the reality of marriage. And even when the circumstance is bleak and dark and all of that, to continue to have hope and to stand in the truth. And look, the graces that flow from that choice that you're making, that decision that you're making, that faithfulness, there are great graces, right? And so I'm sure your children are, benefiting greatly from your witness, but you are a witness even beyond to the entire church, the entire world. And so I just want to thank you and thank you for the courage of actually sharing your story publicly. I think there's great power in that, and that God is working in that in wonderful ways. And so thank you for doing that today. And I'm sure there are so many people that you're helping and don't even realize it. But any final words you might want to say to somebody who maybe God is giving them maybe a good prompting to check out CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com and to maybe start from there. There's a lot of resources on the website, some podcasts, some other things that you'll get pointed to, but also this retreat in Atlanta coming up this week. Still time for somebody, even if they live far away, to maybe even book a flight, book the hotel, and get there for the start of this retreat Wednesday morning. If God is giving anybody that good prompting, Catherine, what would you want to say to them to maybe help them if it might be difficult to say yes to such a bold call?
I think whenever God directs our steps and we say yes, we have the courage to say yes, that God opens so many doors for us. The healing will pour in, and just don't be afraid to follow God. It's scary, I know, and Satan will be whispering in your ear that you can't do this. This will never work. It's not worth it. You should give up. Don't listen to those lies. Listen to God. Go where He sends you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, wonderful. Again, the website, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com, CatholicsForMarriageRestoration.com. David, anything you want to add to that, to anybody who might be listening right now and they're thinking about it? Maybe they're sensing that good tug, that prompting from our Lord. Anything you want to say to them?
Yeah, I would just encourage them, if at all possible, to try and come. And even if they can't come to the entire retreat, maybe come to the Thursday night dinner and meet supporters, and just to get a sense of how many people are doing this. And it's not just one or two people. You're not alone. So just to get that sense, I think it's important to get that sense of community. And we certainly are going to have that at the retreat, and we certainly have that in these groups and praying the Rosary every night together, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, great. Yeah, we've mentioned several other resources throughout the show today. Lila Miller's books, Father Altieri, his great book on marriage, Dr. Christine Bacon. I'm not that familiar with her, but the way that you speak of her, she's somebody that I want to learn more about and check out what she has to say and her great resources. That sounds wonderful. Anybody else you want to make sure to highlight, or any other resources that you'd want to share in the final minutes here? Catherine, Catherine, go ahead.
I would just like to thank John Clark for all of his work. He has really taken it upon himself to support marriage, the sanctity of marriage, the validity of marriage, and it's not a popular topic to take on, and so we just appreciate all the work that he's doing to uphold marriage.
Great. Awesome. David, any others you'd like to add?
I think it's important with John Clark to point out that he is in a very happy marriage, and it's not just complaining about the church for him. It's not sour grapes. I think it's notable that he's in such a great marriage and he's still trying to bring these points to light. And so it's not like he has an axe to grind or anything like that. But yeah, so, and just Layla Miller's books are excellent. I think if you want to cry tears of sorrow and almost despair, that's primal loss. But if you want to cry tears of joy and just disbelief almost at the goodness of God, read Impossible Marriages Redeemed. Really, really excellent books.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, David Schoenberger and Catherine Anderson. Again, it's the first ever Catholics for Marriage Restoration retreat in Atlanta this week, November 13th through 15th, catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. That's catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. And I do want to encourage folks, if you do have anything you want to share about this show or any other, if you have ideas on topics you'd like to see or people you'd like to see turn up on the program, you can always reach out to me, Jim H. at thestationofthecross.com, Jim H. at thestationofthecross.com. And again, thank you to that anonymous viewer, listener, to point me in the direction of Catholics for Marriage Restoration and the good fruit that comes from it, that we can then share this great work with others. Again, catholicsformarriagerestoration.com, catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. God bless you.
If the cares and anxieties of life are weighing you down, come to the St. Thomas More House of Prayer and allow the Lord to refresh your soul. The St. Thomas More House of Prayer is a Catholic retreat center devoted to praying and promoting the Liturgy of the Hours. You'll find